Hello, in the last video I showed how to get this block over here to spin a nice 360 degrees, and in this video it'll just be a really quick short thing to show you how to actually attach something to it to get that thing moving with it. If I wanted this lamppost here, say, to follow this object, you know, if I were to try to make a matinee that would perfectly follow it in a nice 360 degrees, that would be very difficult. It would take a lot of time and wouldn't really look right. So what you can do instead is just attach it. So if I convert this into a mover, what you can actually do is open its properties windows now, and it has this nice attachment tab. So if you lock the window, then you can select the other object you want it to attach it to, and then you can hit this little green arrow across from base. Now, what you'll see now is that this thing has this like green arrow. The fog's kind of blocking it. But it has this green arrow pointing towards the other object here and the little box around what it's attached to. So now, if I go ahead and play the level again, oh, that's not good. Oh, okay, so it actually is following the movement. But what's happening here is that the actual base object itself is rotated 90 degrees, and that causes sort of an offset thing to happen. And so what we can do is, obviously, like, the original matinee worked okay with this being rotated, but attached objects don't really like that because they'll take that rotation into account too, and then rotate 90 degrees on the axis here first, and then it'll start rotating. So what we can actually do here is, there's a few options. We can just set this back to 0, and then I can move this thing over here. And in most situations, you know, that would work. So we have this little thing over here. Now it's following and it looks pretty okay. But let's say you were in a situation where for whatever reason you couldn't have that. You just couldn't have it rotated like that. You have to have this object here. Maybe it's like something specific you're trying to do, or a model you want to have in a specific position, and it's not just something that, you know, is two-sided or whatever and doesn't matter. So what we'll have to do here is actually add something else for it to move instead. So we'll add this little target point here, and we can actually set its physics to interpolating specifically, because you can't, a mover has that set it already. What we'll do is we'll open the interactor's properties, and we'll actually copy its location. And then we can actually open this and then paste its location into it. And that'll allow it to, you know, sort of follow that instead. And so now what we'll do is we'll actually attach both of these objects. Let me lock the window to the target point instead. And they'll follow this. And because it's not rotated at all, then we don't have to worry about it having an offset. So instead of rotating this thing, oops, there we go. I think I actually broke the attachment with that. That's annoying. Okay, just reattach really quick. Okay. Now, instead of rotating, yeah, this, I can break the link here, and I can add a new link with the target point. And as long as its physics is still set to interpolating, what we'll see is that everything will follow that target point's movement. So now it works just fine. You don't have to worry about that. And the same kind of theory applies or whatever to the other objects in the level. So if I get a transport cannon, if you're ever wondering how, you know, you'd actually get something like this to fire at a target point, you can lock the window, select it, and then select target here. Now it has a little target. You can see actually the blue line here will actually fire it up and down there. This works for pretty much everything else. So if I had like a time trial, this little thing here. Normally, you might have to like enter the name of a pawn. Energy bit. Normally, you might have to do something like add a collectible and like hat collectible energy bit 0. You'd have to like type that in. That's kind of annoying. Instead, you could just lock the window, select the pawn, and then select the green arrow, and that'll fit right in there. And now it's already added. Now we're a pawn right there. And that's basically how you use the attachment feature, and just in general that UI for adding things to other objects like that. thanks for watching. I'll probably make a new video soon.